With the release of Crown Zenith, the Pokemon Sword and Shield era is finally over, and today I want to go over some of the cube staples from all of the 18 sets from Sword and Shield. Of course, we're not going to go over every Pokemon. Most of the Pokemon are very high on the power level scale. We're going to compare here Umbreon with Umbreon. One is from 2005, one is from 2021. Power creep is almost like 3 times the numbers, even though they kind of do the same thing. So yeah, we're going to go over a few supporting Pokemon, a lot of trainers, a few special energy, but there's a lot of good to see here, a lot of good cards. So we're going to start with a Galarian Zigzagoon released on Sword and Shield base set. Has the ability Headbutt Tantrum, kind of reminiscent of Flashbite on Crobat G. When it enters play, puts a damage counter anywhere. Really good card. Kind of worse than Crobat on a few stats, but it's really good if you have a singleton cube. You only could have one effect like Crobat, and Galarian Zigzagoon here gives you another option. There's a lot of ping effects on stage 1 and stage 2s, but only one previously on a basic, which used to be Crobat G. And now we have one more, and it's really cute. So I'm sure most cubes over mid-power, mid-high maybe. No, mid-power can probably use Galarian Zigzagoon really well. Now for Pyukumuku from Fusion Strike, has the very cool ability, Pitch a Pyukumuku. If it's in your hand, you can put it on the bottom of your deck and draw a card. You can only do it once per turn. I really like basic Pokemon that have different abilities like this. It makes your every Pokemon search you have in your deck a bit more. It can get anything. Like if you use Unknown, you can get a tool. If you get Apon or Pyukumuku, you can draw cards. If you have any of the Holons Pokemon, you have energy. So the more, the better. Apon kind of does the same thing already, but you need Apon on your bench in order to use the ability. Some cards will get the Pokemon directly into your hand, and some, like Bridget, will put it directly into play. So it's good to have like multiples. Unfortunately, it does do 3 for 50. Kind of screws up the math for low power cubes, where 3 for 50 is like a lot. 80 HP is like pretty good as well. But it can be put in most cubes, and it's gonna do what it needs to do, which is draw cards. Then we have Comfey from Lost Origin. Andrachi from I'm sorry, I don't remember the set. Comfey and Andrachi both can look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put them into one of them into your hand. Andrachi gets the other back in the top of the deck, and Comfey puts the other in the Lost Zone, which interestingly, Sword and Shield kind of revived the Lost Zone for TCG. They're kind of like ability on draw, but again, if you're playing singleton, you want as many of these types of effects as you can. But these two, they have interesting effects. Comfey can kind of power up the Lost Zone if you're going to use something like a Mirage Gate, or some of the older Lost Zone cards like this Lucario from Call of Legends that does more damage for each Pokemon in the Lost Zone. It's really interesting. And just like a decent draw Pokemon. Jirachi is way more interesting with the amazing Star Attack. You can put 7 basic energy, just attach from the deck directly into your Pokemon. Crazy good acceleration for a pretty hefty price of 3 different types of energy. 1 Holland's Pokemon there, and you're good to go. So we've already seen a few very funny, amazing Star decks in Cube League. So I expect this Jirachi to be played in a lot of different cubes and a lot of Pokemon. A lot of decks being forced into amazing star weirdness. So yeah, I really like when that happens in Cube. We have Eevee here. This new Eevee with the Resonant Evolution ability, kind of reminiscent of the Chain Reaction Eevee from the promo Wizards of the Coast era. This Eevee evolves from when you evolve another one of your Eevees. So again, if you have a singleton cube, you want to have as many energy evolutions, chain reactions, resonant evolutions, as many good EVs as you can get your hands into. And there's a lot of cubes with a lot of EVs, as we see. This is Delta EVs from Blue. Has 34 total EV cards. Maybe this EV is a bit too strong for that specific cube, but a really interesting effect for something like a mid-high power cube is also pretty cool. kind of fixed version of the old chain reaction. Hisuian Masculine. This one kind of outdoes Dunsparce and as his own game. Gather the Crew is a 0 energy call for family. Gets only 2 basics, but that's already pretty good. We really like to have 0 energy attacks in our supporting basics, like this Chatot from Majestic Dawn. Mimic being 0 energy. The Cleffa from Heart Gold Soul Silver also 0 energy. So you can like turn 1, retreat whatever is in the active, and still attack. You don't need to like put energy into this thing to start seeing it work. So really good card. We have Ditto from Pokemon Go with the sudden transformation ability, kind of reminiscent of both Mew from Fates Collide and Marshadow GX from some set of the Sun and Moon era. The ability lets you use attacks from basic Pokemon without a rule box in your discard. So it's kind of like Mew. It's small, it kind of gets bopped by anything, but only from Pokemon in your discard. So just like Marshadow GX used to do. You can't do the things that Marshadow used to do, like using Dawnwing's GX attack, because it can't use rule box Pokemon, but that makes it really interesting for any lower power cube. The HP, it's like fine, there's no crazy numbers. Like I really like when these cards exist that don't have any crazy numbers associated with it, and then it can be used in any types of cubes. Really good. Cinccino and Lightpard are doing their best Zoroark GX cosplays with the trade and make do abilities. That's pretty much what Zoroark used to do. Unfortunately, they are very good at what they do, and it is attacking. 2 for 60, way too good for any low power, low mid, even mid power. And Cinccino's energy assist is even good for high power. This attack is really good. It's early pressure, it's acceleration. If you don't know what you are attacking with on like the mid game, you can start setting up numbers. It's also colorless, so it can attack at every time. So they are really good. Of course, trade was only good if you had like multiples in play. If you have like one Lightpard in play, it's not going to be as good as Zoroark used to be, but they're still pretty good for high power plus. And yeah, I'd recommend using them, but watch out. Cinccino especially is kind of too good. Ariados here has Spider Net, kind of reminiscent of Bright Look and Darker Ring. When you evolve, you can gust a Pokemon from your opponents. This one only gusts evolution Pokemon, which I really like. So you can like turn to cheese your opponent by gusting their basic with an energy attached and kill it like on turn 2. This makes Ariados a very interesting line for most power levels. You have Poisonous Nest that can poison both actives except for grass. You have Sticky that raises the retreat cost, and then you have this which does. So really interesting line for high power, not even high power, like most power levels can use this. The attack is low numbers. The HP is kind of high, but not with this attack. This is not gonna break any mid power cube. The effect is really good, and it's like a classic effect, so I really like this line. Zoroark is probably the most interesting Pokemon printed in like the last many years, together with Ditto Prism Star here. It's kind of like Ditto for stage 1s, kinda. You can get a Pokemon stage 1 from your discard pile and trade it with Zoroark. So this opens anything basically can happen to Zoroark. Like if you want to tack a 0/1/1 line into your deck, you technically can. If you want to play like a stage 1 box type of deck that there's one attacker that you really want to reuse, or if you really want to play 4 corner style deck that you need to play a lot of different types of Pokemon, a lot of different attackers, the Zoroark is going to be a very good way to recover them directly into play. No need to evolve again. So this is probably, I think this is the best Pokemon printed in the last many years. I've even seen people making custom Zoroark cards with lesser HP and lesser damage numbers, because 2 for 70 is way too high for like mid power, because this effect is so interesting that like if it does 2 for 40, you can probably put it in a mid power cube and call it a day and still have this very interesting effect. Drizzile, one of the most important Pokemon printed in the Sword and Shield era, when it evolves, can get a trainer card from the deck, any trainer card. It kind of reminds me of Herdier with Treasure Hunt from Sun and Moon base set. The numbers are pretty good. It's not going to break anything. So I've seen this Drizzile running around in a few mid-power cubes already. Delta Mutant comes to mind. A really good card, can just set you up or can combo off if you need like stadiums or specific tools to do whatever you want. And there's a lot of ways to reset shady dealings with Fuji, Devo Sprays, AZs, Acerolas, all of that. So this is also a very important cube staple in my opinion. And to round out the Pokemon, we have a few accelerators that have decent numbers. They're not going to break anything by pure stats, but they are really good. Fluffy kind of is a better version of Electric just because it evolves into a better line. There's a lot of good Ampharos over the years, and there's not a lot of good Electroses over the years. So if you're feeling like your Ampharos line is doing poorly, maybe you can put one or two there. Maybe that's too strong for mid-power below, but you have to see. Frostmoth and Charm have kind of energy rain style abilities. Frostmoth can attach any number of water to the bench, and Charm can attach any number of grass to non-rule boxes. So both really interesting, but really strong as well. There's probably a cube that can play with both of these, and I don't know, Welder and Magma Basin for the fire line, and can be really interesting there. Not most cubes. I'd say that this acceleration is way too strong for most normally mid-ish power cubes. Going to special energy, we have Double Turbo and Twin. They are both double colorless energy that has been nerfed. Kind of like they have half of Double Rainbow attached to it, so Twin can be used by rule boxes, and Double Turbo does minus 20, which DRE used to be minus 10. Minus 20 is way too much for like low power, even mid power. Probably mid high has some crazy good attacks that Double Turbo can use. Or if you have some line that doesn't want to do damage but really wants a DC effect, Double Turbo can serve for that. And Twin is a amazing way of nerfing your EX Pokemon from Gen 3 or level X from Gen 4. If you think they're overperforming because of DC, but you really want the DC effect for your normal stage 2s and stage 1s, Twin is here to save you. Aurora Energy is a Rainbow Energy that discards a card instead of taking 10 damage. This is interesting because there's not a lot of Rainbow Energy effects over the years. There's only Rainbow Crystal and Multi. There's a lot of Rainbow that's conditional, or some weird energies like Blend and Unit that sometimes don't fit on the types of decks that people are playing. So having more Aurora is really important. Not more Aurora, more Rainbow Energy is really important for any singleton cube that really wants this effect, because I think our Rainbow Energy and Aurora Energy are really important effects for a cube you want to play as weird decks and different lines, and you want them to like have their fun and make their weird quirky decks, and this is one of the cards that let weird decks work, and I'm really happy to see more of them. We haven't seen a new Rainbow or new Aurora effect from Scarlet and Violet, and I'll be happy to see when that comes out. Capture Energy, kind of the sister of Call Energy, the younger sister of Call Energy. A really solid effect. You attach, you get a basic, it's really good. One colorless in your deck usually doesn't screw up anything. Can be played in most decks. It's a really high pick. Doesn't have the weird restrictions of being deactive as Call Energy had, or ending your turn. It just does the thing. It's kind of like a nest ball on an energy. It's an amazing card. Can go in every power level. I'd recommend you get yours for any cube you're playing. To round out your special energy, we're looking at this new cycle of special energies for specific types. These ones are better than the XY ones just by virtue of they can be attached to any type. The X and Y ones, like Burning Energy or Strong Energy, they can only be attached to their own type, so it would make make it hard for you to play like multi-type decks, which in Cube you want to do a lot of the times. Unfortunately, most of these energy have some number associated, like Powerful has a plus 20, Heat Energy has more HP, I think. Stone Energy has damage reduction, but these ones in the screen do not. Like Coating is kind of weakness guard for metal. Wash Energy is Hull Energy WP, but only the water effect, which is preventing effects from attacks. The Fairy Energy does that from the XY block. So yeah, that's the same energy. Speed Energy, probably the best one, just draws 2. Crazy good. A bill on an energy. I would never expect to see that in the past, but it's a really solid card. Hiding Energy does what Mystery Energy does. Reducing retreat costs, really good as well. And now we're gonna go to trainers, and there's a lot of trainers, so there's 4 per slide here, so we can go over them very quickly. Here's some basic searchers. Sonia is kind of bad Rosie, but it's still pretty good. On the beginning of the game, you want 2 basics. On the late game, you want 2 energy. It's a very fine card. Gloria is Bridget 2.0. Just searches 3 basics that are not rule boxes. Ball Guy is Epicorn Maker, just a bit better because it searches for 3 different items. Epicorn Maker could get 2 of the same, but getting 1 more is really important. And in Cube, I think the different items doesn't really matter, so Ball Guy is just like a straight upgrade. Quick Ball, crazy good. Ultra Ball, slightly nerfed, but puts the Pokemon in the hand so you can get your Uxie, your Lapras, your whatever come into play, your Galarian Zigzagoon. Amazing card. To get evolutions or any card, Pokekid gets you any card like Baby's Wood or Trevor, or there was Celios, kind of. Breeders, Nurturing, and Arizu are really good. They are. I don't think we've ever had a supporter that gets 2 evolutions. Usually they get 2 GXs or something like that, but those get 2 evolutions of anything. Arizu, it's non-rulebook, gets 3 evolutions. It's so crazy. Those cards are super important for, I'd say, any cube that wants to go really fast. You want like Collector turn 1 or Arizu turn 2 and just be ahead the entire game. Evo Instance, kind of like a better Evo Soda, can get your Pokemon directly into hand, so you can trigger effects or use rare candy. Some decent draw here. Professor's Research, a 3rd Juniper and Sycamore. Sage's Training gets a better version in Chorus's Experiment. I would think that Chorus is worse when I first read the card, but then I played with it, and choosing 3 cards is so much better. It's even awkward to go back to Sage's now. Lost Zoning kinda sucks, but not so much. Sometimes it can suck a lot, but I'd say Chorus just gets into most cubes. Cynthia's Ambition, kind of like a worse Cynthia's Feelings. You draw until you have 8 instead of shuffling into and drawing 8. But it's a pretty decent. You can keep your cards for a combo. Sometimes it can be better. Zinnia's Resolve, kind of a worse Steven's Advice, but like it's still pretty good. If you have discard synergies, Zinnia's is crazy good. We have some ways to deal with the prizes here, which is something that Pokemon is notoriously bad at doing. Peonia and Hisuian Heavy can get prize cards directly into the hand. I like Hisuian Heavy Ball. It's kind of like a Time Walk that only gets basics, but it also gets you information. You immediately get to know every one of your prizes. You got to shuffle them all back. It's kind of a bit different than Time Walk in that sense, but you immediately know if you have a very important card prize or not. Peonia, it's kind of awkward because you don't choose the prizes you're taking. It doesn't draw any extra cards. It's weird. Like you have to waste the Peonia. It's not like Gladion when you put the Gladion back so you don't discard anything. The Peonia kinda discarded. It's awkward. There's some good draw as well. Rose Tower is Instruct on a Stadium, which is really interesting. I think people that play on the beginning of the the Sun and Moon era used Instruct a lot. Trekking Shoes, kind of like a new Acrobike, which is it's draw. It certainly is draw. It's a bit worse, but it's fine if you want this effect. Again, for Singleton it's really good to have Acrobike and Bicycle, Trekking Shoes, and Mail from Bill. The Unknowns, all that jazz. There's some type-specific supporters here. Kindler is kind of a very good Cynthia's Guidance for decks that play Fire Energy, or a fixed Misty's Ref, but of course a supporter. Looking at 7 and getting 2 is very, very, very good. I really like this Kindler. It's also the first supporter that deals with fire that is not acceleration, since like Welder and Blacksmith wants to accelerate cards, and sometimes that's not what you want for cube. Irida is a Corina like reprint, but it changes fighting to water. Corina is amazing. Irida is also amazing, so that's easy. Adamant kind of sucks. Crusher Wake is not a amazing card. Adamant, I've seen it being used to decent effect in the past, like Crusher Wake, so it's fine. It's okay. Pierce is the one that gets the most attention here because it straight up just searches for special energy in the deck. I can see Pierce being played in a lot of different decks just because it searches for like scrambles, double rainbows, or rainbows, super boost strongs, and like you kind of ignore the dark Pokemon part because the card is just really good. Some more cards here. We have Professor Burnett. Discards 2 cards from your deck. It's not good. It's a supporter. It's like a very worse version of Battle Compressor. But again, sometimes you need cards for singleton. Like if someone is playing a deck that heavily relies on the discard pile, like Gyarados or like Night March, you really just want to discard as many cards as possible. So you take some bad effects over just having the option to do that. Training Court is a power tree, but it can be used at any point in the game. You can have a special energy in the discard, so a really strong card. Training Court can pretty much go on any cube. Peony, it's kind of a bad Green's Exploration. You discard your hand and search for 2 trainers. I like Peony since it can combo really well with download Porygon 2. You can use Peony as your first supporter, search for like a decent item, and your second supporter, use your second supporter, draw again, go bananas. Vitality Band, kind of like Muscle Band at home, but it's really good to have Muscle Band at home. That card is way too good for mid power. Plus 10 is pretty good. It's not gonna break anything, probably gonna break low power, but anything like low mid up, Vitality Man can have a home. Recovery, and this is probably my favorite part of Sword and Shield. Clara is the single best recovery card ever printed. It's one card that gets 4 directly into hand. This card is bananas. It was like fine when it was released, and then the cube community started playing with it, and we all collectively went crazy over Clara. It is a pack one. It is just the best recovery card ever. Ordinary Rod, kind of a different version of Super Rod. It technically gets 1 more card, but it has less flexibility. Sometimes Super Rod is really good when you want to shuffle back like Dratini, Dragonair, Dragonite back, and Ordinary Rod can't really do that. Gets you 1 more card, but it's kind of it's not better, it's not worse, it's less flexible, which sometimes that's not what you want to see. Roseanne's Backup, my favorite card from Sword and Shield block. Does everything. Gets a tool, a stadium, and energy. And energy can be a special energy as well. And a Pokemon, amazing card. There are so many strategies that rely on 1 very important tool, 1 very important stadium, or some decks that play like Scramble Energy, Double Rainbow Energy, and really want to reuse it. This card is A+. I love it to death. It's not like as good as Clara's, but in my heart it is absolutely. Rescue Carrier, kind of like depending on the power level of your cube, this either recovers the entire cube, or it just recovers like stage 1s and basics. But a really good card. I would put this in most cubes and see what people do with it. Retreating, we have Air Balloon, a new float stone, but only 2 retreat costs reduced, so you can like retreat out of like a Golem or Wailord or something really big, but most of the time it's gonna be a flow stone. Birdkeeper, kind of Tate and Liza, but nuts, because you do pretty much both effects. Drawing 3 with like a good thing attached to the card is really good. Birdkeeper, the moment it came out, it became a forever cube staple. Thornton and Fursotic Girl, they're kind of like soup teleporter but supporters, but different. Thornton gets a Pokemon from the discard, which is really interesting because if you have a really good basic Pokemon, you want to use like a Zapdos, something like that. You can use the Thornton, get it immediately. The energy, if you had attached, are all there. For Sotogoro, it gets a Pokemon from the deck, puts on the bench, and then puts on the active. It's really good in like turn 1 if you really want to like put, I don't know, you're gathering the crew Hisuian masculine from the deck. Does that for you immediately. Kind of a weak card, but still pretty playable in most power levels. If you hate your opponents or if you hate everything, there's some hate cards for you here. Tool Jammer just shuts off every other 2 if it's in the active, kind of like Secession Crystal. But it has less applications, but it's still pretty good. Most tools your opponent's going to use are either damage mods, HP mods, or retreating out. And Tool Jammer shutting all of these off is just really good. Avery, one of the craziest supporters I've ever seen. Kind of like a Giant Stump or a Parallel City, stapled on draw 3. I don't like the card. I think it's either useless, like it's gonna help your opponent like reset a Shaman, or just discard a heavily damaged Pokemon. But I don't know, maybe you have a use for it. Path to the Peak, just a power plant, but it just says there rule boxes. But we used to play with power plant and just say rule boxes instead of GX and EX, but now we have like the correct card. Also, it's again for if you are playing Singleton, you want both of these effects maybe. Temple of Sinnoh, if by some reason you want to shut off your opponent's like Rainbow Energy, I don't know why this card exists, but it does. It's Crystal Beach, but just straight up better. Going over some acceleration. Acceleration is something that Pokemon never really did in this amount in trainer cards. Usually acceleration was in Pokemon, maybe sometimes rarely in a trainer, but in Sword and Shield they went out for acceleration. After Welder, they printed kind of Welder in Grass, which is Gardenia's Vigor, and Welder in Water in the form of Melanie. Draw 3 or draw 2 and accelerate something somewhere. Magma Basin kind of reminds me of Psy Shadow. It's acceleration, but with 2 damage counters, and also Stadium acceleration is really interesting. I think it's the first one, and then they still hadn't done it again, I think. The 2 damage counters are interesting. That makes it like kind of balanced in lower power levels. I've used this with like Arcanine EX. If you think about it, it's really good, but the 2 damage counters kind of hurt in lower powers. So maybe Magma Basin can be more playable than you think. Metal Saucer, I don't know why they took away the patch. Why did they take away the patch? But it's Dark Patch for Metal. Also, interestingly enough, it attaches a Metal Energy, not a basic Metal Energy. So you can attach like a special Metal from Neo or from Ruby and Sapphire with Metal Saucer. Here we have some supporters that accelerate any type of energy to any Pokemon. Beat is kind of like the Masked Royal, attaches from hand to your bench, but it doesn't care about the type of energy or which stage it is. It just attaches one energy. Money Sprite is kind of like a blank patch for all of your Pokemon. Cafe Master is also one of my favorite cards from Sword and Shield. One of the jankiest cards I've ever seen. You need 3 types of different energy, and you attach into 3 different Pokemon. So you can like load something up. You can be playing like Mono Fighting and attach 3 energy to a Machop and evolve and attack with like 4 energy Machamp. No, you need to attach 3 different types of energy to 3 different Pokemon. It's a lot of acceleration, but it costs your turn and it costs your entire deck because you need to be playing a wacky 3-type deck. But I love decks like that and cubes that let Cafe Master work. Raihan is kind of like half teammates, half acceleration. I like the card. I think sometimes half of teammates is not good enough, but maybe the half acceleration part is very good. In the first time I saw it, I thought it was way too good. I don't have it in my actual cube because I prefer like Marnie Sprite and Beat and Cafe Master for slower acceleration. I think Raihan's kind of a bit too good, but it may be fine in any other cube that you're trying to do. Some item acceleration cards. They kind of suck in Cube, not gonna lie. Turbo Patch is just energy pickup for basic non-GX Pokemon. What is not rule box? Oh, that's weird. Yeah, flip a coin. It's awkward. Gutsy Pickaxe is just Ether for fighting energy. If you're playing Singleton and you really like Ether and you really want your fighting Pokemon to be accelerated to, there you go. Wait and See Turbo is a wait and see hammer that accelerates basic energy to any of your Pokemon but your turn ends. I've never seen this card played. I maybe will see this card played one day. It is interesting. If you have like a green or a peony, any way to search it out turn one, because well, the rest of the game is pretty useless. Mirage Gate, one of the strongest cards printed on Sword and Shield. But it's really hard to make this word in Cube. You can't play 4 Comfy, 4 Nets, 4 Switch, and just go bananas. You can make a cube around Mirage Gate and kind of make it like old Max Elixir, where you go bananas and accelerate. But it's probably going to be really hard. We've seen it on... I've seen a cube do this, and it worked to some extent. It was kind of bait. It was kind of not. There's... People have to test out, but it is an interesting card, and you need to make it work somehow. And that's gonna be it for the staples from Sword and Shield. Again, those are staples for any power level, most of any power level. If you want any more information about Cube, you can go to cubekoga.net and start looking yourself at some cubes. And if you want to talk to people about Cube, you can join the Discord server for the Cube League, Cube Draft. All the links are in the description. And yeah, that's it for me, and see you guys later.